Okay, part two to what I was saying. Pleiadians, Bible, reptilians, primates, right? I know it's bad for me. Don't care. But check it out, right? Now, off to where we left off at. We left off at, yeah, you know, how we were draconian, reptilian, the alpha draconian, reptilian, Pleiadians, and the primates of this world, right? How they made us Nephilim, and that's why we are here to be reincarnated, because that's our souls. That's what they created. You know what I'm saying? Now to go as so to speak, how like what made everything go from there to here is that they put something in us, and we know it as the worship gene, right? We have to look for something to believe in. In other words, we're codependent, right, of a higher power, so to say. And because of that, that is also why man is separated. And as to who put that worship gene in us, it all goes back to who the Nephilim were, who, you know what I mean? It goes down back to that, and then it goes into the Anunnaki, because yes, the Anunnaki is just a branch of the Pleiadians family. And like I said, as for good and evil, it's how your impact, and it's about the energy your impact makes on the world. You know what I'm saying? That determines it good or evil. Either way, it repeats. So you look at the Anunnaki, and so when they came here, they were already, you know what I mean, beings of sorts, beings of primitive, already here. That was the survivors of the first flood that comes in Genesis or the Bible. You know what I'm saying? That's the first flood survivors. What the Anunnaki came here and then evolved from there, which is now us. But you see, there's reasons to why humans have such characteristics as to acne, dry skin, and you even get cold-bloodedness. In other words, it doesn't mean you're ruthless. It just means that you're either warm or you're cold all the time. Because, you know, oh, I'm warm-blooded. You know, I'm always cold. What? Like, you know, how is that? Unless we do carry some reptilian traits in us, and some more than the next. So, that being said, yes, if you have acne, right, you can listen to doctors, or, well, I call them doctors, but the people that are disproven pharmaceutical right now, saying everything is caused by parasites. Yes, it is, but it's a little more complex than that. Let me go over it, right? So the pharmaceutical tells you that everybody has parasites. Everybody. Even if you don't want to believe it, you have it, right? That's a whole part of, they say, denial process, is that when you get offended or aggravated or even angry and resentful towards another person for telling you a truth that you do not believe in, and that you get angry, they say that's from parasites. Whatever way, right? Whatever it is, this is how I see it, right? Parasites are kind of like, you know how your body has, like I guess you could say like things that fight off viruses and bacteria, right? I don't know the word for it, but yeah. Okay, you can see those kind of like um, parasites to a person, because they come in and they disrupt us, make us act crazy of the sorts, make us look crazy of the sorts. But what I'm getting at here is that somewhere along that line, parasites they're not natural. Let me put it that way. They're either a species of their own or a genetically made species to kind of keep us in line. In other words, not to always keep us in a disagreement and to never unite us, right? Well, you know where they messed up is that they saw that yes, parasites do affect people, do affect moods, do affect changes. That wasn't really working as their agenda is to create the perfect human being. Because you got to think about it. They want to create the perfect human being. What they consider a rebellion type of gene or whatever, you know what I mean? Something, I would assume it's a gene and a DNA strand that we would consider junk DNA, right? Something that makes you rational. It makes you think rationally. Like, no, this is wrong. Yes, this is right. You know what I mean? So, I think they didn't like that we have rational thinking or a rebellion gene. And, I'm assuming they assume that we got it from the reptilians as like you know what I mean, because reptilians are always known throughout star systems for just rebelling, you know what I mean? They just don't follow the rules, kind of like us. We don't follow the rules. Hell, the government sets rules that they don't even follow. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, you let that make sense, and then let's get more into it now. Be that being said, now we have a codependency gene trying to fight off the rebellion gene. That's the first process. Second process is they can't do it DNA structurally, so they try to do it microscopically, you know, through the cells and atoms and shit like that, right? So that's where you get, well, I don't know. I came up with a phrase, and like I said, call it a light code from the sun, gift from God, whatever. But something just told me one day, like, a cell is a cell until it's corrupted or disturbed. Then that's when it becomes a parasite. So that got me thinking, like, why would I even think that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I think of a phrase like that? That doesn't, sounds like some scripture shit. You know what I'm saying? So, as I'm doing that, thinking on that thought, I just, things just start hitting me, like, fucking clarity, reassurance, confirmation. You know what I'm saying? And it just all made sense, this whole fucking story, as to like why we are separated, but then as to why we are fighting the unknown entities, because a parasite is an entity. And if you think of a parasite, right, it survived out of the body, it can survive in the body, and it can survive in water. If that's not interdimensional to you, then I don't know what interdimensional you mean. Because if you ask me, that's interdimensional. Because, you know, take it like this. A fish in the water doesn't know it's a fish until you take it out the water, right? Then it realizes it can't breathe. Same thing with humans. If an alien were to come, you know what I mean? pull a human being from the earth and just let them out into space. Of course, we're gonna suffocate because that's a whole different dimension of density. In other words, what I'm saying is, yes, the air we breathe, if you want to think about it, hydrogen, oxygen, whatever, right? Break it down. It has water, vapor, and water molecules. Therefore, the air we breathe consists of water, right? So we're basically in an ocean, and the fish we get, they are their own people with their own consciousness and their own fucking world down there. And when we take them out, of course the fish are gonna fucking freak out, you know what I mean? Start flopping everywhere, trying to get out the boat, get out your hands, whatever. It's because it doesn't realize, because it's not at that vibration, you know what I'm saying, of comprehensiveness, of there are beings outside of here that could grab us at any time and any moment. Come on, is that not interdimensional? You know what I mean? But yeah, back to the whole genes. And this is where, so you know what I mean, they couldn't fix that rebellion gene with the worship gene, and they couldn't fix that rebellion gene with parasites. So they go even more microscopic, and to what our body conducts called electricity with nanotechnology, right? And they even say they release nanotechnology through aerosols and chemtrails, and through aerosols just in the vapor, like the air around us, the vapor basically. And that we all have them, because there's even proof that the unvaccinated are starting to come up with more gel-ins. That's the big old disease they don't name. I don't know why. I guess because the fact that if you go to the doctor and try to tell the doctor you have more gel-ins, they're gonna hit you with a bunch of different answers. They're gonna tell you it's a figment of the imagination. It's pericosis or something like that, right? Parapsychosis, something like that, where you're convinced that you have bugs inside of you, hence itching sensation, right? Yes, that's what it looks like in our field of vision due to the vibration that allows us to see light, the percentage of light. And so yeah, of course it's gonna sound like a figment of your imagination if you can't see it, if it's on a whole different vibrational plane, dimension. And if you don't believe me, think of it like radio frequency waves, broadcast frequency waves, right? In other words, the difference between the dimensions is what you would call like a static. In other words, like you get loss of time, you get fatigue, you get disoriented out of nowhere. In other words, you just get a headache out of nowhere. No, you almost pass out type of deal, but you don't, you wake up, right? You have successfully interdimensional travel. And again, this is where I say if you want to know what they're talking about in the past, you gotta look to the future. And the whole mark of the beast thing, believe it or not, is because us last, like, Nephilim human beings, like, us colored folks, before they try to turn us into what we know as the gray alien, yeah, we're the mark of the beast. Because you know why? Because more Jellins comes through nanotechnology, mixed with parasites, mixed with that codependency gene. And what that's going to do is single out every individual that still holds reptilian DNA, or at least a high percentage of reptilian DNA. And they're going to come after us. You know what I'm saying? But, again, just as we are the mark of the beast, we are also the 144,000. Because that's what gives us free will. Is that, or that's what makes us confused, in other words. A subconscious and a conscious. It's because they mix two DNA strands that contradict one another instead of conjoining one another, right? Conjunction, or whatever word it is, whatever word you feel comfortable using. So, yeah. And how do I know for sure if what I got was like a real message or so? I say, like, you see my face, right? Acne, right? Acne. You see my arm here? More gelatin. Now they might tell you that this is like either a type of, let's say, like might say it's like a type of scabies, type of rash, whatever. It's none of that. It's them trying to single us out as individuals because we still carry free will within us. I mean, does this not look like scales to you people? You know what I'm saying? You can sit here, dermatologist, and look at it, say, oh, you know, that looks like eczema. That looks like, you know, like what they would call the parasicosis. They might say, oh, well, that's due to maybe you're using drugs. I'm not using those drugs. The drugs I'm using is marijuana, and so be that. My proof right there. And if you do have more gellings, don't go to the hospital, because they're going to tell you it's a figment of your imagination, right? And this is where that I've always thought, because I've just always had a thought that we were the destroyers of the gods. Well, the synchronicities, the coincidences that I've been experiencing and receiving, and I know because I have pictures, I have footage, I even have, where, you know, like, because I know AI is not a validated source of knowledge, but it seems to be the source of knowledge that everybody is interested in hearing, right? And I will put up the pictures that I sent it of the little filaments coming out of my pores, and then I will send you the photos of the same filaments that I put under a UV light that seem to glow a certain bit or a certain way, to where AI confirms that yes, that is nanotechnology. And my whole point is I'm not looking to gain anything out of this. I just want people to be aware. You know what I'm saying? Because it's the spiritual warfare out here. It's no longer spiritual. They brought it into the physical. You know what I'm saying? They really did find a way, like they say, man against man, woman against woman, man against son, woman against daughter. You don't believe me? Look at around you. Look at your society. Look at your economy. And then look at the people who are in charge of your economy. And if you don't see the differences in living, like as a whole, like, then you're still lost. But yeah, that's what it is. They're trying to single out the last human beings that hold reptilian DNA because, like I said, they're trying to make a smart, non-questionable, non-expressionable, non-emotional human being. Crazy. But yeah, like I said, that's just what I get out of all of this. So that's why the serpent was demonized in the Bible. It wasn't the forbidden knowledge was, or the forbidden fruit, in other words, was figuring out our genes, figuring out how we're made. And then we already messed up by trying to recreate our image with these AI robots. So, yes, if you don't see the pattern there, I completely understand, but let me tell you the pattern. God and Sophia made angels, archons, Greek gods, whatever name you want to put on them, right? Those came, you know what I mean, bred amongst each other along the star systems, right? So and so, to where it's a family tree, a celestial family tree. And that's all we are, a celestial family tree of that branch. So I say to everybody out there, you know what I mean? Just be aware. You know what I mean? And I am going to be coming with more stories, more information, more visions, more information that has been given to me. Because ever since I was younger, I've always been intuitive. Talk to ghosts, see ghosts, talk to things, see things that nobody else seems to see or believe. Well, believe me if you're going to believe anyone, because I'm finding ways to put it in understanding across all aspects. Because I feel like, if it is true on the information I received that I am one of the last so-called human beings out here that withhold that reptilian, strand of DNA that fights off not only the nanotech, but the parasites and the worship gene. That's where they get, and I think that's where Jesus was getting at when he said, you could do what I do, but of greater extent and greater limits. If it doesn't make sense, then I guess it doesn't. But, that's just how I'm ending it here. Stay tuned till next time.